A3, I'd like to welcome all of our guests this evening. Does not look like we need anything interpreted into Spanish, I believe, and so as I scan, so thank you for being here and ready and prepared. I do have one special announcement before moving forward. We are excited to announce that we have now a Spanish link on our Facebook Live page, and that will begin today. And we have Emma here that is going to be interpreting our board meeting in Spanish, and I've asked Director Mike Garza to mention that in Spanish.
Buenas noches para los que estén en línea vía Facebook Live, escuchando la Junta, un anuncio. Si están en la página, hay un link donde usted puede oprimir y escuchar la Junta totalmente traducida al español de parte de la mesa directiva. Es un servicio que le ofrecemos para que usted pueda escuchar la Junta totalmente en español.
Thank you, Director Garza. I would also, before moving on, like to call for a moment of silence. We, over the weekend, lost a member of our community, Shannon McKay, who was a former board president, and he has passed away over the weekend from a long battle with cancer. And so if we can have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Moving on to item A4. I will entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Move to approve the agenda. Move to approve the agenda as written.
Motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve this evening's agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Ashton. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. You'll notice we have a roll call, voting online. And so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item B1, citizens' request to speak. And I do have one card here. Cheryl Schweitzer, if you could come and take the mic, please. You have 3 minutes to make a comment of the board, and so thank you very much. Yeah, hold it. Yeah. There.
Sorry.
I think it's on now.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As in the commercial, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to inform you guys, we do have an editor for the Sun Tribune. It's actually somebody who used to be editor of the Othello Outlook. His name is Bob Kirkpatrick. However, there's like 4 meetings all at this time, and there's only one of him. So at least for the time being, you're still stuck with me. That may change over time, but for right now, hi. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. We're glad you're with us.
Moving on to item C1. We will have a minute to look over our minutes, and then we will call for a motion to approve. Prior to approving our minutes, though, is there any questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
Are we approving the minutes separately, or with
We are.
general consent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We are still looking into merging them together with consent agenda, but for now, we are doing it separate.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion's been made by Director Mike Garza to approve minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Hilmes. Discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Is there any questions or comments about consent agenda this evening?
Just some clarification, the location of the portable and then future portable at MMS, Gina, that's just north of the one softball field, between the softball field and the alley, is that what I could see from the picture?
That's correct. And I have a meeting Wednesday morning with Orland and Wade, Terry Clements, Gary Liebach, and Chief Shank to talk about just the make sure we have everything covered to roll that direction. So
just a question I've never gone out to look at. I just remember when we were talking one time about potentially where we could put classrooms on that campus. One of the things that came up was south of the kitchen. And is that just not, we can't fit portables there though? Because I remember we talked about putting
there's a lot of utilities under those portables. So that was an area last year we talked about with the city, and it was not something they were going to improve. Yeah, and one of the things I believe will make this advantageous, the school liked this location because even though it's not a direct line of sight, it is in front of the school. They're looking to have sixth period be a prep period, so there would be no students in the portables at the end of the day when traffic is increased. They basically, the city would see them as temporary also, and they're much more favorable in, I believe, in approving that when they know they're not going to be a permanent fixture. I did have some conversations with the Nazarene Church about a possibility of placing them in the front parking area or even in the back, and they were willing to entertain that. And then we came up with this location, and this was actually a more favorable location. Also having it on our property and not inconveniencing another entity. It doesn't interrupt the softball field. There may be a broken window, or we may just put some that wiring on the windows to prevent that. I think this is pretty clear on there, but we'd just be doing one this year. Right now, we're basically short one classroom if we use the multipurpose room for a classroom, but that's not a real conducive learning spot. So by having one double portable, that provides us classroom space for the one classroom we're short, and a real classroom for the one that would fit into the multipurpose room. So, and then the second portable would be for the following year for the additional group of kids coming up.
So what area of funding does the resources for this come from? Is it capital projects, or is it out of a different
No,
source?
this would be out of the general fund.
Out of the general fund.
If we were
Okay.
purchasing them, it would be, actually, purchasing they're out of the general fund as well, but.
Okay.
So when you talk about the city liking the fact that they'd be temporary, is this based on some conversations you've had then with?
Just in past, I mean,
city.
I don't want to speak for them because we haven't had a chance. They've received this information, the same layout, and so they know what we're talking about this week. But because they're much more interested in the district putting permanent facilities, but they also know we're working on the facility planning and that there's several years involved in getting to those permanent structures. So just I guess the eyesore of portables, I think we're all kind of in agreement of that. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to item C3, and I'll entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve.
Second.
Second by Director Mike Garza. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Are we voting?
Yes.
Wait for it.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C4, Superintendent Report. Dr. Hurst.
Good evening. On last board meeting, there was a follow-up item around sharing just drawings about the tennis courts. So we have the tennis court uploaded, and we're going to have Gina Bullis walk the board members through that document.
Okay, so I really don't have a presentation on this document. This was provided as in response to the board's request that the revised tennis court drawings be presented to the board prior to going out for bid. So these are the documents that Architects West has provided to the district, and made them available to the board if they have any questions that I need to take back to Architects West.
So in this scenario, we're doing 4 and with an alternate of 2 more courts, correct?
Yes, the base bid would be 4 courts.
So what is the 4 courts that's the base bid?
That's open for, we could do the 4 that are all along the top, or we could do the bottom two, or do,
Okay, so they haven't necessarily.
no,
defined.
that's up to the district to define.
One thing, if you could ask for me, Gina, if there was a reason they weren't able to look at this with the possibility of having 4 courts on the south side, closer to that building down there. I mean, just as I'm looking at this, it looks like they would fit across east to west on the south side there. And I only ask that because I know there's been discussion in the past about parking and a different entrance for the football field, and not knowing where the community is going to want to go with our future high school. That's just something that has come to mind. It just seems like it would keep the tennis courts kind of separated a little bit from that potential in the future. So maybe just ask the question if that, so there's that open square where the concessions is down there in the southeast corner. If 2 courts would fit there. So if we go with 4, could they be down there? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can ask. I know the one thing just to the right of the cursor arrow there is where there's gas tanks right there. So the availability for still accessing those with vehicles, if a court goes all the way up to, if we drop those other courts down, that would be something that I just need to find out. But I
Do
can
we
do that.
still plan on filling
We
with
still,
gas there?
well, we still do use that, those gas pumps
What do we use them for?
for vehicles, Philip, but unleaded fuel, yeah. That we have
So
our
out
gas
there,
pump out at the
it's all
transportation center, but we still do use those pumps as well. And I think I'd have to go back and ask Marion and Orland. I believe it has more to do with the vacating process. Once you're no longer using a pump, what you need to do to vacate the pump, it can be
They're-
pretty expensive.
They're in-ground pumps? Or are
That's
they
a below the ground tank, yes. So that it's a pretty expensive process to.
remove them?
So that was one thing we looked at when we built the transportation center. I don't remember the specifics since it's been 2 or 3 years, but I know that was one of the reasons. If we kept it an active pump versus closing it down and
I'd
having
like
to
to know-
take.
I'd be interested to know what that cost would be. I mean, obviously, someone thought it was a high price, but I don't know if the rest of the board cares.
Well, so we don't have unleaded out at the bus garage.
No, we do, because a lot of our buses are, we just, again, the reason for keeping this, the pump available at the old transportation center was deferring, and I don't recall right off, I know that we have it available, but it was very expensive to shut it down and EPA testing and either pull the tank out or, I don't remember all the specifics, but I do know it was a pretty big dollar amount, so I can find that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. This concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you. Moving on to item C5, Director Discussions. Legislative Report, Director Simmons.
So there's a big surprise that they've started the extra legislative session today. So they called for an extra session because they weren't able to get all the decisions made. I'm obviously being facetious on that. I think this is the third biennium in a row. And I think I've read since 1980, there's been 8 years that they didn't have an extra session, so it's pretty common. There's not a lot that has happened since my last presentation to the board, but I'll mention a couple things that may be of interest to the board. A couple items. One is that the House and Senate bills, they're still looking at these bills to potentially delink or delay whether or not assessments will be required for graduation. So actually the graduating class of 2017 is still waiting on some decisions there. Apparently it could affect 21% of the graduating students in Washington State. That was a number that I read. The other thing is that House and Senate are both still working on a bill that would help to recruit and retain bilingual and dual language educators. So that's a pretty exciting one, and even down to how to have homegrown programs to get our students from here to go and try to become teachers who are bilingual. So that's something that's going to be, I definitely feel is going to go through, but both the House and Senate are trying to narrow that down to what they can agree upon. So those are two bills that are going right now, but just really nothing new since the last time that have been fully ended up on the governor's desk anyway.
Thank you, Director Simmons. Student representative report.
Good evening. Haven't seen you guys in a while. So just major update is on, of course, Project Bridges. So I believe this last Friday I came in and had the schedule for the evening printed up and given to all the schools, so all the principals know their time slot, and I got some feedback on what their ideas are for their presentations. Kind of, so last year we're kind of understanding more how to transition more smoothly with when understanding, okay, so what are you going to do and how can we transition out of that more smoothly than we did last year. So that's underway, and being in contact with Mr. Vergara with the other schools. Also coming up on advertising, because I know it's only a couple weeks away. So definitely need to get the posters out there, and I plan on start creating the decorations this upcoming week and throughout next week. Just really advertising it. And today we actually, for the high school, have discussed with the drumline about performing for the OHS's slot, and so they're still figuring out their schedule, but it's definitely something we're looking into, and so that's where we are right now.
One thing I mentioned last time was the Raising Student Voice and Participation. It's a program that we're doing at the high school. So this last Thursday we had a training, and it was about 4 hours, and there was around 80 kids there. And our first session, where we take it to every classroom, will be this Thursday. And at this moment, a lot of the kids are excited about it. They believe like their voices will actually be heard, and there's been a lot of questions about it. Like, kids are getting intrigued and interested, and during the training they were focused. Like, kids usually mess around, but they really paid attention and they wanted to be a part of it.
Awesome. Great, thank you guys. Moving on, surveys. I believe Director Ashton has some ideas that he'd like to share with the board about potentially putting surveys out to different groups.
Yeah, I guess my question for the board was, in the past, we've had done an annual survey of admin and staff as part of our evaluation of the superintendent, and we're getting close to time when we would do that again. So I was just talking to Juan and wanting to see the board's thoughts if we wanted to do that. We could use the template we used in the past, and then also if we wanted to do that, if we wanted to include a separate survey for the community similar to what the board's doing for itself as a part of our evaluation tool for Dr. Hurst.
Can we use the same survey?
I don't know why we couldn't.
I think our admin and staff surveys were a little bit different, but maybe more specific to their jobs. I don't know if they would be.
Well, I'm sure we'd have to take it and shorten it for the public, because it was it was quite a few questions from my
I think
memory.
we just had 10. We narrowed it down to 10 on purpose. That was my memory.
Right.
But
Maybe that's right.
we might be able to use the same ones for for the public. I haven't seen them in a while, but the idea, I'm definitely in favor of the idea. And I think that as we're trying to, we still don't know exactly what we're going to be using for incentives for Dr. Hurst. So we might look at it and decide, yeah, this is something we should use, or if nothing else, it's just information for us, and it won't hurt.
I
That's
agree.
my opinion.
I agree as well.
We get, I have consensus then from the board? So, Director Ashton, if you could get us.
Yeah, I'll see, I don't have a login to the Survey Monkey, but I know that there's the surveys in there somewhere. I can get it on my phone, but not on my computer. So if Sandra can find it, you could email me the PDF of it. Yeah. It's a superintendent survey is what I think it's under.
And there'd be two,
there.
one for admin, one for staff.
Yeah, there's two separate surveys in there. And then my other question for the board is I see we've got a really good response on our surveys from the teachers. Not a very good sampling from what I could tell from the community. I don't know if we need to request that we send out some information on Messenger. It's really for the community, not just for parents, but I just wonder if there's any other ways the board can think of to encourage or get the word out that survey is there. The last I looked, I think there's 35 parents that have completed the survey. As one board member, I'm just not sure you get a real perspective of what the community is feeling from 35 people.
Maybe we should talk about what we think that number should be, what the minimum should be for us to feel like we've got a good sampling as well.
How is the community receiving these?
I think right now it's just on the district's website and on Facebook.
Has it been advertised to look there for a? Add them?
There hasn't been a messenger or anything, but I don't know how else to do it. I'm sure maybe it'll be in the paper now, but that we're doing that survey.
Do you have any number in mind of what you think would be a sample?
For me, at least 100.
I was just thinking the same thing before I asked the question.
My question is, we're gonna be reviewing these at our retreat, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to get them out,
So we have 2 weeks still, right?
Okay.
We can still review them, it's just a matter of whether or not we say, well, was that enough really to feel like it was meaningful? But a messenger's not gonna hurt. I don't know. I don't have any other ideas on how to get it out.
Okay.
What do you
Let's
think?
try a messenger and
try it.
and see how many that
Oh, we can't do that
brings.
now.
Great. Anything else on surveys?
One. It's a 360 evaluation of the school board. So it's questions about how the community feels the school board is doing in general. So I believe there's 20 questions and a place to put comments on how we can better communicate with the community. And our intention is to review those, the responses from that and use it to become a better board.
Thank you. Great. Moving on. So we need to select a date as a board to review scholarships for our board scholarship that's going to be given away at graduation or to a graduating senior or seniors. I believe there's 2 seniors that are going to be selected. Also, want to choose the same date so that we can interview student rep candidates that are, I believe we've received 3 applications so far. Hoping there's more, but we need to select a date where all board members can be present to not only select scholarship recipients, but interview student reps. So if you could look at your calendars.
I'm open any Monday. Mondays are best for me, but whether it's lunch one or after, doesn't matter.
How do Mondays look for you guys?
A lot of color on that calendar one.
Yeah.
Like the 8th at noon or at the board meeting day. I know we have a workshop before.
I'd rather do it the 15th.
Or 15th is fine with me too.
Okay, is that fine with everyone else?
If it's a later one,
Or lunch.
Not lunch? Okay.
lunch would be for me.
But Director Hilmes, no? Would 6 o'clock work for everyone?
6 o'clock would work for me. 6:30, I could make work.
Director Ashton?
6:30 is fine with me.
Okay, 6:30 on the
Actually-
15th.
You can probably make it 6. It's probably gonna be a dinner
Yes.
type of deal, so go ahead and do it the 6th, or
Okay.
6 o'clock. I'll make it.
So May 15th, 6 o'clock, we will have a board workshop to select our scholarship recipients and also to interview our potential new student rep for next year.
So, President Garza, I guess I have a couple questions. I don't think if we've ever talked about it before, but is that a workshop or is that an executive session where we're talking about individual kids, students, and when we're interviewing individual students? I know when you do it with I believe when you interview school board members, I don't remember if it's open to the public and then the discussion's not.
I
Or how
wouldn't see
that
why it wouldn't
works.
be open to the public. When we interviewed our superintendent, it was open to the public.
Yeah.
But then we went back into executive session though when we discussed the
select.
details, so I
Mhm.
think there has to be an executive session
Just to select. and
at the end
discuss
of it or
that.
something.
Yeah, and the scholarship one, I'm just not sure if that should be public or not, because we're
Okay.
discussing, 70 or 80 individual students.
Okay,
Well, because in the past, we've just had 2 board members, and it wasn't
Yeah.
a regular board meeting.
Well, we've done it kind of both ways, but
Have we had more than
we've
2?
had
have.
more than 2.
Oh, okay.
In my mind, that it just wouldn't be appropriate to have like a Facebook Live or something when we're talking about, when we announce it, I think absolutely, but when we're coming to our decision.
What would be your timing of this? What would happen first?
scholarship selection, get that out of the way. And then we would call in every 15 minutes or so a new student for an interview. And I will have questions prepared for the board.
How long for the scholarship selection?
We don't have to, in previous years, the board has selected 3 scholarships, and I believe this year we're only selecting our own. I believe the others have run out. And so we're only selecting our school board scholarships. So I believe all of us should be
Depends
present.
on, we could all be there, but I think you're asking how long it'll take.
Yeah,
right?
Depending
on the applications there are.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get a stack of,
Taken a couple hours every year.
so maybe we could go 6 to 7 for scholarship selection and then start our interviews at 7? Does that sound okay to you guys?
I think we should go the other way around,
Interviews first? How do you guys feel? Is that?
because they're more structured, and then we'll, if it takes us
Okay.
a little longer for the other ones, people aren't waiting.
So we'll do interviews from 6 to 7, and Sandra, if you could prepare those interviews in 15-minute time slots with students that have already applied, and if any additions after that. And then we'll do scholarship selection right after our interviews. So May 15th, starting at 6 o'clock. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions or comments on that? Not moving on to our, I believe you have attached a tentative board retreat agenda. I've sat down with Dr. Hurst and with our Vice President as well, Director Ashton, to review this agenda. I believe it has everything that I think is pertinent to our discussion for the retreat. Is there anything that you guys would like to add or delete or any changes?
I'd send a suggestion.
Sure.
If they'd be ready for us. What about scholarship selection at the board retreat? We could do it very informally.
The only thing is we'd have to take all the scholarships with us, and they might need to stay here because there's other scholarships they're applying for, so. So if there's any questions, we will make this agenda the official agenda for our board retreat. And I believe everyone will be present, correct? And so Director Ashton, if you could tell us what time we will be able to arrive on the Friday before, right? Correct?
Yeah, anytime after 5.
Okay. So anytime after 5 on Friday, so you all know about approximately what time we have to leave. Great. Any other comment, question?
Food plans?
I thought Chef Simmons was taking care of
Well,
that.
I've done that in the past. I just want to make sure that's still the expectation.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have it any other way.
So, you might want to consider where we pick. We're going to have a meeting this time, so it's not too far away. The brisket gets burnt.
I don't think that'll be an issue this time.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, moving on to item D1, assurance of organizational performance. We will begin with ends 1, global end. And we will start with question number 1. 3 members found that question in compliance. 2 found it in compliance with the following exceptions. Comments read as such: even though we're making progress in this area, we still have work to do. Comment number 2, it doesn't appear that the data presented addresses whether the students are successful. Is that measurable? Comment number 3, I believe we have the necessary offerings, classes, to make this reality. It is up to students to embrace and demonstrate subjects learned. And then comment number 4, it is great to see 75% of our students taking CTE courses. It would be great to track this and the other statistics over time so that we can see the trend, if the trend is continuing. The short-term trend of 81.7 of students attending college or VOTech school in 2014 versus 62.5% in 2015, while the percent working only increased from 46 to 50%. It may be good to modify the survey to differentiate from working in a career or working part-time while to college or tech school.
The mouthful I wrote.
Yeah, that is a mouthful.
But that one sentence was basically pointing out that there's a positive trend in there and a negative trend when you break it down. And I don't know why that is, because the one in 14 we had 81% of our students going to college or VOTech, and it dropped down to 62.5, which to me is a big drop. I know there's only 180 students, but it was a big drop. So it'd be good, I think, to track it over time so we can kind of see a trend. And if it's just a 1-year anomaly or what happened.
I see what you're saying on the other one, because I was noticing too that they added up to well over 100% because some students were working and going to school, and so it was
I
hard to
suspect
tell.
that's why this percentage is so skewed because of the way the questions are written.
Maybe we just write the question rather than getting 2 different answers there. Just say, are you working and not going to school? Would be if that's what we're really trying to find out. Who's actually got a full-time job but not attending or not currently attending school.
Right. Yeah, it was set up you could select multiple answers in the survey.
Got it. Do I get consensus from the board to keep all 4 comments, or do you want to shrink that down to a couple?
A lot of comments.
I guess I personally feel like it is measurable, and I thought the statistics that Director Hirsch put in there was a measurement. So I'm not personally, I'm not sure I agree with comment number 2, but
that's because my comment, and that's why you don't agree with it.
I didn't know whose comment it was.
Well, tell me in that data how you could tell a student was successful at what they were doing. So I'm in college. Am I successful? Maybe I'm failing all my classes. Maybe I'm in my 3rd job because I can't hold down a job. That's what I meant by that. That is a difficult thing to measure, I think. but that is the way our ends is worded, that we're preparing students to be successful.
Yeah, and I guess
in
my
life.
view of being immediately able to compete in a career is being able to get a job out of high school. Is if you can't get a job, then we have a problem. If they're not employed because they can't get a job, then we've just done a
So if they can't
disservice.
keep a job, that's not a problem.
If they can't keep a job, I think that's different than not getting a job.
I agree, and I think they both could be
Different
potential issues.
factors. That's character factors.
My point really was more to us as a board is this really fair to expect that to be measurable? It would be great if we could, but I don't think the way we currently have it that we're really asking for to find out if to compete and succeed. That's the part, and I think it is important that we make sure that we're helping students succeed in that next step, not just be able to get accepted to a college, but actually to have a successful college experience.
It's still measurable though. You just change the questions. If you were worried about the things you're bringing up, you'd ask, how many jobs have you had in the last year since you got out of high school?
Sure.
If you have a job, you could do drop downs, and
If it's measurable, I think we should try to.
I mean, it'd be
Measure that part of it.
self-reporting. I don't know that we're gonna require kids to bring their grades in, their college transcripts or anything,
Right.
but
So for that matter, I mean, they could all be saying they have a job and they don't too.
right. I mean, we're expecting some honesty there anyway.
It's anonymous, so. But that was my point of that comment.
I'm fine with leaving it in, having her.
So leave all comments?
Yep, leave all the comments.
Okay. Consensus? Board? Yes.
So
Moving
it's
on.
in compliance with an exception or in compliance, where it's 3-2.
Well,
It's in-
it's 3-2, so I'd say it's
Yeah, it's in compliance
It's in compliance for sure, but with the exceptions or with
with the following comments. We're
With the
keeping
following
comments.
comments.
comments. Okay.
So I would suggest we don't leave the "is that measurable" part in my comment in there though, because I think I just had my question answered.
So take
That's
out.
why I asked that,
okay.
was so that we could have a discussion.
Okay. Noted. Okay, question number 2. Was found unanimously in compliance with one comment. It is great to see the diversity of ways our students are serving our community. And that's just a positive informational question, I believe, or comment. So we'll keep that. Question number 3, 4 found in compliance, 1 not in compliance. The comments, there's 2 comments. Comment number 1, not all students have access currently. Comment number 2, I'm excited to see the further progress outlined in our goals. And so I guess whoever wrote, not all students have access currently, what does that mean?
I think that's true, whoever's put that on there, but the way I read this question, it's per the OSD approved technology plan, and the technology plan isn't scheduled for all students to have devices yet.
Until next
Correct.
year.
It was my comment, and actually after I read this, preparing for this board meeting, I thought that same thing, and so I agree with Tony.
So you'll change your to in compliance?
But it doesn't even have to, because 4 found
You're
in
right,
compliance, so.
but still, I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree it's in compliance based on that.
But you don't
Okay.
want your comment on there then.
No.
No, it doesn't need to be. So we'll keep comment number 2 on question number 3 and in compliance. Moving on to question 4, unanimously in compliance with 1 comment. It would be nice to figure out a way for students who are struggling in reading to be active in the arts as well. I'm not sure if that's kind of.
That's my comment.
Okay, so-
And it came from inside of Chris's report. He reflected that, and I brought it up in the board meeting the other night,
Right.
that the current practice at some of our schools is to not allow kids to be in the arts
Right.
if they're not,
Struggling.
if they're struggling in reading. So I just put in there, it would be nice to somehow have kids still have the opportunity to be in arts when they're struggling. I don't have a solution. That's up to the
Can you tell us what you mean by in the arts?
band, choir, drawing, drama,
So,
the
Okay.
arts, yeah, all together.
okay,
Whatever that's offered at McFarland. I don't know if they have drama or
okay.
what they have there.
Consensus to keep that comment as well? Okay, moving on to question 5, unanimously in compliance. There was no comments. Question number 6, 4 in compliance, 1 in compliance with the following exception. Comment number 1. I look forward to continued improvement in this area. As per your report, not all schools have events or learning experiences that recognize or celebrate diversity or commonalities. So in compliance, and we'll keep that comment, Board? Okay. Great, thank you. Item D2, GP9. I will mention that this SurveyMonkey, every question was found unanimously in compliance with no comment. So if we could move on, if I can get consensus that this is, GP9 is in compliance? Great. There is no policy review this board meeting. We will now recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing 80 acres of land lease, and also for the purpose of staff evaluation for about an hour and 15 minutes for both those issues. And so we will be in recess for 5 minutes. And
will there be any action taken after executive session?
there possibly could, but not sure. Potential action to be taken. So we will recess for 5 minutes and then come into executive session. Thank you.